Right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming and for having me. My name is Oriana Dunker. I've been involved with 826 since I was like in elementary school. I think I was like 6 to 8. But this will be my third year on 826's Youth Literary Advisory Board. Yeah. And on the board, we do a lot of publications, but today I'll be reading for you my poem called, oh my gosh, I forgot the name of it, but, The City That Gave Me Life from the book, This Side of the Hill. So I'll get started. Oh, and I forgot to say, I'm 16 and I go to Boston Latin School. So I'm gonna, so I'll be heading back to school right after this. The Boston I know is my Nana's house, her garden that seems to make the whole neighborhood look that much greener. The sandbox me and my sister and my brother built entire worlds in. The tiny chair I'd get to sit in if I wasn't on the floor, sitting underneath my Nana as she braided my hair and put in my favorite colors of beads and barrettes. I know how it felt to stand at the top of the hill at my abuela's house in the summer and watch my brother and cousins fly down on their bikes, chasing them from the sidewalk because I was too scared to go that fast. I know how it felt when I was younger to be a car racing through Blue Hill Ave through the block party to the street I'd seen every day but had never seen so full of people. I know the way to walk to the park I'd go to as a kid that now, as the oldest girl on my mom's side of the family, I lead my cousins to. What I didn't know was that in my neighborhood, the neighborhood park cleanup, there were used needles left between the swings and the cracks in the rocks. What I didn't know was how bad the schools in my neighborhood were, how I needed to be sent somewhere else until I heard kids joking about it. What I didn't know was that every house in Roxbury gets robbed. What I didn't know was that Boston cream donuts were the food that was supposed to represent where I'm from. That Pakyaka in the Harvard Yard was the only acceptable accent. What I didn't know was that because the Boston I knew wasn't Newbury Street or Faneuil Hall or TD Garden or the Financial District or Seaport, I didn't know the city that gave me life wasn't the good city. I didn't know that my Boston was something to be ashamed of. Now I go to school in Boston. I'm here 24/7. Like the butterflies that only appear in the sunny months, the warmer it gets, the more I'm outside, exploring the city that I missed out on when I was too ashamed to appreciate it. The Boston I know is like an inside joke that you have to get, that when someone on the outside tries to poke fun at, it's just not the same. The Boston I know is the Boston that made me. It's the Boston I'm proud to call home, the city that gave me life. Thank you. All right. So, thank you guys so much. And now I'll be turning it over to John Williams, the interim executive director at 826 Boston. Okay.
Thank you, Oriana. Wasn't she great? Let's give her another hand. And I'd also just like to recognize the beautiful setting that we have here with more than words. So if we can give a hand for our host, for our partner. And finally, I want to give a big thank you to all of you for starting your day with us here at Books for Breakfast. It's my first time at Book for Breakfast, and I think a lot of you have been here before, so I'm taking my lead from you guys. My name is John Williams. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I'm delighted to be the interim executive director of 826 Boston. I joined the organization this summer, and I'm thrilled to be meeting so many supporters and community members here today supporting the organization. I want to say start by acknowledging that the land where we are gathering this morning and where 826 Boston Center offices and partner schools are located in Greater Roxbury are on the original homelands of the Massachusetts and Pawtucket tribes, We honor and pay our respects to the ancestral bloodlines of these tribes and their descendants who are still inhabiting this land on which we work, serve, and live today. My, have we put together an incredible program for you today. Bet you can't wait. We'll soon hear from more amazing 826 Boston students and alumni, as well as our featured speaker, Isaac Fitzgerald. But first, I want to take just a few moments to describe our work and share some updates about where we're headed. 826 Boston, as you know, is a nonprofit writing, tutoring, and publishing organization where students in grades K through 12 and beyond improve their writing skills. As a result, they're better equipped to share their voices, share their stories, amplify their voices, and develop as leaders in school and in life. Now, we offer our programs in Boston Public Schools and at our Writing and Tutoring Center located in Boston's Eggleston Square. Now, as you might expect, providing the high-quality youth writing programs for which 826 Boston is well-renowned has been challenging over the past 3 years. But our talented team has risen to that challenge. They've been flexible and responsive to the needs of teachers and students, finding new and creative ways to navigate the effects of learning loss due to the pandemic. In fact, the Boston Globe and the New York Times recently named individualized tutoring and writing support exactly what we do at 826 Boston as a key tool for overcoming this missed learning. In just this past year alone, our team fostered new school-based partnerships and reached students with whom we had never worked before. We helped students write about their dreams and their fears during our after-school tutoring program. We helped them work on science fair projects, draft school newspapers, and publish stories about what it's like to be, say, a young Black person in Boston. And we partnered with 826 Boston alumni to brainstorm ways to strengthen our work in the coming year. Now, we couldn't do this work without our network of more than 500 volunteers, several of whom are here this morning. If you have volunteered for 826 Boston, please stand or wave so we can recognize and thank you as you're able. Yeah, with your help, we provided nearly 20,000, let me say that again, 20,000 hours of tutoring last year, and we hope to do even more this year. Now, as many of you know, we work predominantly, as I said, with Boston Public School students. What you might not know is that we recently launched an 826 Boston alumni network. We recognize that our work is stronger when we can remain connected to the students who have experienced our programs. We want them to come back, to intern, to volunteer, and one day to lead the organization. I'm so excited that we will now be hearing from a very special 826 Boston alumna, Agnes Ogoji. Truly, yes, let's hear it for Agnes. Who truly soared during the years we were lucky enough to spend with her at 826 Boston's Writers' Room at the John D. O'Brien School of Mathematics and Science. Now, her resume is unbelievable. She won slam poetry competition, and she was named the state's first ever youth poet laureate. Her poetry was commissioned multiple times before she even graduated from high school. I could go on, but this program is only an hour long. Before we welcome Agnes to the stage, we'll watch a short video featuring her from 2015, back when the 826 Boston Writers' Room program was very new. Some of you will remember this video, and I promise that all of us will be moved. Thank you again for your time. Now let's enjoy the video.
You're beautiful, you know. The way you waltz into hospital rooms and suddenly sit on the side of their beds, run your bony fingers through the hairs of the sick with a crescent moon on your face that could brighten the entire room. 'Cause that is what killers do. My name is Agnes Sigoji. I'm 15 and I was born in Lagos, Nigeria. I go to the John D. O'Brien School of Mathematics and Science, but I'm really interested in just arts and any form of art I just find really interesting. Cancer, you have a face of destruction. You have corruption running through your veins. Do you remember how I caught you hanging on to my grandmother's breast? You slither through bones and hug our most valuable organs. You love to change the forest of our hair into barren soil. Cancer, you tell the most wonderful stories. Tell me about the time that you developed in my aunt's ovaries, or about your visits to the children's hospital. I always forget how those ones end. Once you hear the name O'Brien, you think of all the mathematics, all the engineering that we have, all the great athletes that are here, but you never actually hear about the artists. The artists that walk in the hallways, it's kind of like they have a mask over their face. The writer's room is a place for them to just remove their mask and just show who they really are. Cancer, you are a musician. You play the proud bass with our ribs, the gentle harp with our spines, the steel drums with our hip bones. You play an orchestra with our bodies. Louder Than a Bomb is a competition for slam poets, where they go and they recite the poems that they have written, and they go against other teams or in the state. This is my first time going to perform, and I'm really shaky. I'm afraid, but I know that with my team of poets, if we stick together and if we work together as a team, we will slay. Yeah. Cancer, you can invade through the blood, but not through the spirit. Cancer, you can conquer an organism, but you can never conquer a soul. Being a writer, to me, means that's my identity. Having a room just for writing, that means a lot to me, really, because I can read books here, I can meet other writers. If I want to come for an essay that I'm working on in class, I know that they will help me. It's just amazing for me to just have a place where I can be who I am, a writer. We will eradicate your name from every hospital room in the world. And the only big C word that you and I will know is conquered. Oh my goodness, hi. That was We Will Slay. Oh, that was so cringy. Oh, sorry. Oh, with the purple braids. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I haven't seen that video in years. Oh my goodness. Oh. Okay. Good morning, everyone. It is so wonderful to be here and seeing all of your beautiful faces this bright, Thursday morning. Yeah, I can't explain how excited I was to get an email from Karen saying that she had an event that she wanted me to speak at. I'm just so excited to be here. And I just want to start by sharing a short anecdote from my childhood. When I was 13, my mother gifted me with a jigada, a waist bead, a jewelry band with small, colorful beads strung on a thin thread that's adorned around the waist or stomach. In many West African cultures, waist beads are a symbol of femininity and womanhood. I considered mine a rite of passage that connected me to the vast tapestry of Nigerian culture, where each bead represented a woman that came before me. Not long after I started wearing my jigada, I began to feel its consequence. Every quick movement I made resulted in the beads pinching at my skin. Its purpose was to limit my actions into delicate movements befitting a woman. Restriction seemed synonymous with my womanhood. That was until I started performing poetry. My voice was low and shaky, but remained certain of the space it held. When I performed, I saw the faces of women in the audience. Their eyes glimmered in the spotlight, and their smiles stretched across their faces like crescent moons. Their smiles and snaps validated my newly found confidence in my voice. Until then, I had never been on a platform that allowed me to speak so freely without being reminded to lower my voice. At those moments, I was uncertain of whether it was my jigada or my poetry that gave birth to my womanhood. And yet, despite my newfound liberation, I found it uncomfortable to perform poetry while I wore the jigada. I felt as if I was being pulled in two different directions, one freeing and the other constricting. I realized that I could define my own femininity. It was a revelation that I found in the gaps of the jigada bead and the spaces between my poetic line breaks. One day, I came home from school and made one of the most important decisions in my adolescence. I took hold of the jigada, with hands grasping onto the thread, pulling it in two separate directions, stretching it as hard and as far as I could. I yearned for my culture to validate my womanhood, but not at the cost of restricting my body, my words, and my thoughts. And before I could gather my thoughts, the thread snapped, and the beads scattered like wooden raindrops dancing at my feet. Through poetry, I found the platform to celebrate all that makes me an independent woman and a proud Nigerian. My writing is testimony that one can embrace their culture while coming to terms with their own identity and how they want to define it. My passion for writing is not something that I carried with me from my childhood. Rather, it was a gift carefully cultivated in the John D. O'Brien writer's room. At first, the only reason I went to the writer's room was because I needed a quiet place to study before heading to my after-school job or getting home to 3 hyper little siblings. However, the collection of books that ornamented the shelves and the funny conversations I heard amongst the staff pulled me closer to the writer's room. I noticed that many of my classmates were submitting essays and poems to the Rubik's literary magazine, and soon enough, I became an editor and then a frequent writer for the magazine. A few months later, the writer's room staff created a poetry team, and at first I thought to myself, why would anyone have a team of poets? That's kind of weird. Were they supposed to be the Avengers of literature for the school? But I decided to join the team anyways, and it was a decision that would change the trajectory of my high school experience. I was the only freshman on a team of upperclassmen, but quickly befriended the most talented and funniest students at my school.
and I was introduced to poetry coaches who individually mentored us. Soon, I had the opportunity to share my art beyond the concrete walls of my high school. My art matured to the point where I was incorporating profound metaphors, lines in unison, and even choreography. I entered the team as a writer, but left as a performer. My team was booked for many shows, including my favorite Night of 1,000 Stories. It was an 826 fundraising event, much like this one, with lots more featured speakers, and it became my team's yearly Met Gala. This opened the door for so many more accolades. In 2018, the 826 Boston team won first place at the Louder Than a Bomb Poetry Slam competition. The year prior, I was on the state poetry team that placed second in the world at the International Festival in LA. Additionally, I was the first youth poet laureate in Massachusetts and was named Boston's youngest 150 women of influence at 16. I also met my idol, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, at an event in San Francisco, and I nearly wept in front of her at the 826 national stage. Eventually, I gained the confidence to start hosting my own open mics and writing sessions for LGBTQ students of color at the Haley House in Roxbury. Between you and I, my proudest accomplishment was becoming the first person in my family to go to college. All this because I decided to put pen to paper in a bright-colored room with people who saw something special in me before I saw it in myself. When I went to college, I quickly realized that university-level writing was too formulaic and frankly really boring. However, I was able to transfer skills that set me ahead of other students, including the ability to take feedback, outlining, and especially public speaking. I joined many literary clubs in college, but my favorite was called the Black Underground Theater and Arts Association. It was created by theater trailblazer and one of the first Black women to ever graduate Dartmouth, Lorna C. Hill. However, the organization was inactive for many years until my close friend and I decided to reactivate it. And as director, I created departments for theatrical performances, fashion, dance, and spoken word so other students could share their myriad of talents on campus. I am now a first-generation immigrant Ivy League graduate with a deep love for writing. My younger brother, Desmond, also attends the O'Brien, has found the same love for writing that I have. 826 Boston has helped him cultivate his arts and helped him get published in Rubik's magazine. I'd like to emphasize that this is not just an organization that simply tutors students and leaves them to fend for themselves. Just last month, Heather Nelson, one of the writer's room coordinators during my time at O'Brien, reached out to me for dinner. And as we washed down our dinner with margaritas, she was surprised that I was actually old enough to drink, since we haven't seen each other since my high school graduation. She recounted the intimate moments in the writer's room that I completely forgot. We talked about high school drama, family, and some of the new libraries popping up in Boston. This is just one of the examples of the sense of community that is fostered in the 826 Boston. There are team members and volunteers that follow students' growth way beyond high school. I cannot begin to explain how much it meant to be remembered after all these years. With that being said, I want to simply share my With that being said, I want to share my gratitude to the people in the organization who saw a quiet Black girl and dared her to believe in herself, that dared her to write her own story and forge her own future. Because of you, writing and literary performance became a source of liberation for me. Mastering the art of storytelling has been fundamental in my academic and personal growth. I consider myself a leader in the vast community of poets, organizers, and educators in the Boston community. This organization has instilled in me a strong sense of confidence in my voice, and I move through life knowing that my pen is mightier than any struggle I may face. 826 Boston was the first organization that actually valued my artistry enough to reward my brilliance. Writing is a beautifully crucial craft for young people, and it has both artistic and monetary value. Investing in students' writing means investing in their creativity, imagination, and communication skills, as well as their long-term academic success. Thank you so much for the love and care that you have poured into me and into young students like me in the Boston Public Schools.
So according to the script, I'm supposed to say, wow, that was amazing, thank you. And all I can say is, do I really have to go on after that? Agnes, yes, we should be thanking you. You are tremendous. You are the most, I'm verklempt. Thank you so much. Good morning. It is so nice to see everyone. My name is Janet Tiempo, and I am president of the board of 826 Boston. So thank you so much for being here.
Here's the...
Gets too far. Here we go.
Okay. Tell you what.
Here you go.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry.
Thanks, Janet. We'll hear from 826. We'll hear from Isaac Fitzgerald next, but we have some important business to attend to first. In order to keep our writers' programs running strong so that another generation of writers can find power in their voice, like Agnes, we need your support this morning. We want you to give generously. And to encourage that giving, like any respectable executive director of writing-focused nonprofit, I'm going to tell you a story. Last fall, Boston was swept up in a competitive mayoral race, as you may remember, filled with more racially and ethnically diverse candidates than ever before. The mayor's race inspired the idea for one of our newest books, I Was Meant for This mayoral speeches by Boston's young leaders. Students from across the city wrote their own inaugural speeches, imagining themselves as Boston's mayor-elect and sharing their powerful visions for their hometown. Now, every book we publish has a student editorial board. There are students who step up to lead the publication process, organize and edit the stories, consult on the design, and write a letter to introduce the book. The student editorial board of this book wrote in their letter, "When you open this book, you will find speeches created by determined young writers looking for change." At 826 Boston, when students write, they know that their stories matter, that their ideas for change matter, and they will be future citizen leaders that Boston needs. We feel so lucky to work alongside these leaders.
So our goal for this event is to raise $220,000. Because of our sponsors and early donors, we're already $100,000 there. So now it's your turn. Oriana and Agnes are truly inspirational, and now I'm going to take advantage of that. So as my job as board president, I'm here to ask you to give generously. So before I give you the tools for giving, because 826 Boston is all about giving people the tools to express themselves, there is a little incentive this morning. For every $250 gift, your name gets put into a prize drawing. So if you give $1,000, your name will go in 4 times. If you give $25,000, your name goes in 100 times. So the prizes are either a food tour of Chinatown given by Berta's Bites, or a culinary exploration of Nubian Square, and that's led by Colin White of Live Like a Local. These are 2 local entrepreneurs, small businesses whom we're happy to support, and we hope that you enjoy the tour. And now for the 3 ways that you can give. A book, of course, is the way that you can give. There is a QR code. Just scan that with your phone, and it'll bring you to the donation page. of this event. Or if you're like me, going old school, you can write a check and someone will come, just let us know and someone will come pick that up. Or there's an envelope, there are envelopes on all the tables. And so you can make a pledge. This is particularly handy if you want to give to us from a donor-advised fund. So we'll pause a moment, let you all think about those donations. Maybe you want to put your name in 100 times to get one of these prizes. But thank you so much for coming in advance. I appreciate your generosity. And again, thank you particularly to our staff for being here this morning, for setting up this entire event, and for supporting our students, especially, and each other through this year. Thank you.
I'm going to give you a couple more minutes to think really hard, to write really big, think really big, dream really big, like our students. And I'll come back in just a couple of minutes. Hey, anybody need more time to make out your check or your pledge or your QR code? I want to thank everyone for coming and supporting the work of this organization. With your help, we'll serve more than 3,000 students this year with high-quality writing programs. Students will end the year more confident in their writing skills and more prepared to go out and change the world. It's now my honor to welcome to the stage Isaac Fitzgerald. Isaac is a New York Times best-selling author. His most recent book, Dirtbag, which is in front of all of you on your tables, earned the 2022 New England Book Award. Isaac comes to us from Brooklyn and is they have a good basketball team. They're okay. They're okay. I think they're the 6th largest city all by themselves. And he's a former 826 volunteer, which is a first for us at this event. So please give a warm welcome to Isaac Fitzgerald. Isaac.
Real quick, let's give it up for John. And I just want to take a moment. Oriana read so beautifully. Agnes read so beautifully. Let's give it up, come on, for student readers, alumni readers. Thank you so much. It's pretty great that you get to play hooky from school to do this. Nice job. Okay, so I'm just going to tell you a little bit. You have my memoir in front of you, so I don't need to tell you anything about that. If you want to know about that, you can read the book. But what I wanted to talk about today was what a wonderful homecoming this is for me. I was born and raised in Boston, first on Tremont Street in the South End, different neighborhood in the 80s. And then I lived on Mass Ave at a place called John Larry House. And John Larry House, and it was so moving, Agnes, I couldn't believe when you said Haley House. It just hit me, because that's where I was raised. I was raised within the Catholic worker. My family was low income and unhoused, and the Catholic worker gave them the support that they needed to get back up on their feet. So it's always really, really lovely for me to come back to Boston. But it's a double homecoming because I'm also such a big fan of 826, but we'll get to that in just a second. I want to start today like everyone did, which is just talking about the importance of stories. Stories are a way to communicate, to share, to empathize. And from a very early age, I was taught the power of a story. And that's something I'm very, very grateful for. My parents didn't have much, but they gave me a love of literature. They gave me a love of stories. And when I was hanging out at Haley House, I was surrounded by people, some of which I'm sure were annoyed by the kid running around asking them so many questions, but most of which were very, very willing to share their stories with me. And I think that's initially where my interest in other humans and how they live began. My parents' love of books, of course, translated to me. I spent so much time at the Boston Public Library. I used to pretend the statues out front were my mom's. For the record, my mom was very present. I don't know how that made her feel, but I was always reading. But I did not know that the job of author was one that was possible. At the time, we did not yet have an 826 Boston. From Boston, we actually move out to rural Massachusetts. That's why I'm in a chore coat. I apologize. I would have dressed up if I knew how fancy this was. The joke that I like to make is, people are like, you lived in Western Mass. I'm like, well, not so much, more of a North Central. And they say, where? And I'm like, well, you know how if you go far enough west to Massachusetts, it gets really beautiful? They say, yeah. I say, so before there. But I really say that in jest because I grew up, basically, I landed in a town called Athol, Massachusetts. That's why this book is called Dirtbag, Massachusetts, because you can't call a book Asshole, Massachusetts. Anyways, but I love that town so much and I love that area so much. It was a hard transition for a kid. I had a very difficult time, but the Quabbin Reservoir is beautiful. That area of the state is beautiful. Massachusetts is a very beautiful state that, again, has this deep love of literature, and I'm very proud to come from it. But so I lived in Athol. I started getting into trouble, though. I'm just going to be honest. Agnes, I was not. Although I'm sure you got in your own amount of trouble as well. But it sounds like you were very, very good at high school. I was lacking. But luckily, I had some adults, just like you were saying in your speech, who took notice of me. They supported me. They recognized that I was having a hard time at home and that my parents were maybe having a difficult time too. With their help, I applied for a scholarship, and I got a full scholarship to Cushing Academy, which is out there in Ashburnham, Massachusetts. They took me on at the age of 14. They got me out of a difficult living situation, and for that, I will always, always be grateful. Again, that is something you're going to find in the book, is the way that class, especially here in the state of Massachusetts, rub right up against one another. I come from a very low-income area, but this is still a very rich state. And there's a lot of conversations, a lot of stories that maybe go against one each other, run into each other, but that's where some really important conversations happen. So Cushing Academy gave me the skills that I need to go to college. I was not planning to go to college. I go to college. I want you to know at this point in my life, I know nothing about what I want to do. I've had a job since I was 12, any job I could get my hands on, but I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. All I knew was that I really loved books. So at college, I would sit in the back. I'd be reading, never the assigned reading, but just books, just eating them up, reading under the desk. Great, great love of books. Eventually, I started working on Star Island, which is off the coast of Portsmouth, New Hampshire, about 10 miles out. Again, lots of reading there. Also a job that allowed you to live there. So by the age of 16, I'm out of my own house. Again, you'll read about that journey in this book. But what happens is I end up in San Francisco, California, not knowing what to do with myself, just thinking the most original thing a kid from Massachusetts could do is go to California. Nobody's ever done it before. I remember calling my parents and telling them that. They said, we both did that. Right. But in San Francisco, that's when I'm walking down the street. I was moving out there for a relationship. I think she was kind of like, all right, you can get out of the house anytime now. And she said, there's this place, it says Storytelling and Bookmaking Workshop. Why don't you go check it out? And so I walked down Valencia Street in San Francisco, and there at the address 826 Valencia, that's why it's 826, it's just the address on the building. I see a big sign that says Storytelling and Bookmaking Workshop. I say, yes, I found it, my people. Somebody's gonna teach me how to do this. And I walked in, and it became quite clear that this was a place for children. I was 23 years old. It also became quite clear that what I had walked into was a volunteer session, like an open house, trying to get people in the community to invest in the community by donating their time and working with these wonderful kids. But I was a 23-year-old. I don't know if you all have been 23 yet, but sometimes a jerk. So I was like, I don't want to work with kids, and I'm working at Buca de Beppo. It's Olive Garden, but worse. I don't exactly have a lot of money or time, so I'm just sitting there. But I'm like, if I get up and walk out of here, it's not going to be good. It's not, okay, I'm polite. I can sit here. I can sit through one session. And during that session, I found myself being moved. I found myself being moved by the 826 mission, which is so neighborhood-based. It's so community-based. And now, of course, it's grown and it's gone to multiple cities and there's a national program and I love that about it. But one of the things I love is how just having an 826 location can change a neighborhood. And I started recognizing that. Also, while I was sitting there in the back, it was in a room much like this with much longer tables, but I noticed that on the walls, there are these pieces of paper and they were all framed and they were scribbled on. So it was like type, but with scribbling. And I raised my hand and I said, "What are those?" And they said, "Oh, each page there is from a published manuscript. Each page is from a manuscript that went on to become a book, but we show them to the kids so that they recognize that while writing is an independent art form, the more that you talk to friends, family, loved ones, editors, teachers, volunteers here at the program, the better you will be able to communicate your stories." Up until that moment, I thought writing was, I thought writing was something that happened in ivory towers. I thought people just sat there and they had to be the most educated with the best degrees, and they typed beautiful prose, and they just hit print, and then they sent it to New York, and New York put a cover on it, and they were a millionaire. None of that, it turned out to be true, but that's another story. Up until that moment, I really thought it was so independent. It was in that moment that I recognized two things. One, if you find community, you can become a better writer. Two, you can treat it like craft. The same way my buddy Corey Monfrida out in Wendell used to work on his truck. I didn't know how to change oil, he taught me. I don't know how to put words to a page, somebody can teach me. That's when I became obsessed with finding community, and that's exactly what I did. Through 826 Valencia, I found other like-minded writers, readers, people I cared about. I got to work with these astonishingly talented kids and watch them grow as writers, but at the same time, I got to take notes. I got to figure out how to put a story together. I got to meet with volunteers after we volunteered. Oh, let's start a writing program. Oh, hey, give me your short story. Give me your essay. Let's look at things. We started a website. It was called The Rumpus. It was an online culture magazine. I got to work with Cheryl Strayed, Roxanne Gay, Saeed Jones, incredible people, not just from the San Francisco area, but from across the country. The internet was happening, and all of a sudden we were getting to meet like-minded people across the country. It was all built around stories, and it was all so important. And it's what gave me the faith to try and become a writer, not at a young age, but around the age of 23. From there, I met Wendy McNaughton. We did 2 books about tattoos together. She also illustrated Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, which is that's the one. Our books were about tattoos. And after 10 years in San Francisco, I had 2 books under my belt. Dirtbag, Massachusetts was just starting to be something that maybe I thought I could do. And that's when I moved to New York City. I'm sorry, tough crowd. But you should know that my brother lives in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and the reason I was coming back was because he had a kid, and I already knew I was gonna be the weird uncle. And I didn't wanna be the weird uncle that was 3,000 miles away. And I love Portsmouth, New Hampshire, but my brother told me it was not big enough for both of us. So I go to New York City, and that is where an incredible thing happens. My backyard, not talking down the block, not talking in the neighborhood, I'm talking my backyard touched another man's backyard, and he was drinking rosé in his backyard, and I was drinking rosé in my backyard. And we got to talking, and we got to chatting. And slowly it dawned on me that this man was John Sheska, who wrote the stinky, go ahead, give it up for John Sheska, he's the man. Also, fun fact, was on the board of 826 National, just to bring it back. But John Sheska, if you're not familiar, wrote these he still writes incredible books, but he wrote these incredible books, especially in the 90s, that were called The Stinky Cheese Man and Other Fairly Stupid Tales. Also, The True Story of the 3 Little Pigs. Anyways, incredible books if you don't know them. I had this idea for a kid's book about tattoos, because I'd written these tattoo books. And I just knew. I was like, this is the guy. It's happening again, just like with 826. This is gonna be the person that can guide me and teach me how to do what I wanna do. But you can't just weird out John Sheska. So I waited. We hung out 15 times. Hung out 20 times. One time he missed a flight and I kept his wife company and we ate too much charcuterie and drank too much white wine, but had a blast. I was like, I feel like I'm starting to become part of the family. Maybe I can bring it up. And that's when I pitched him, tattoo book for kids. And he said, Isaac, that is not a children's book. And I was crushed. And I was like, oh, I overstepped. I did it again. This friendship's over. Oh, no. But instead, what he said was, if you want to come over every other Friday for the rest of the summer, I'll teach you how to take that very bad adult idea that you have and turn it into something a kid might actually be interested in. So if you'll give me a minute, it's very quick, because shortness is concise and important. I would love to read you How to Be a Pirate. Would that be all right? So this is called How to Be a Pirate. This is the culmination of me and John's work. It is illustrated by an incredible woman, Bridget Berriger. She illustrated Uni the Unicorn, for those of you that are parents and have probably had to read that too many times. Again, this is short because that was something that John really implemented in me, and also because I watched as my brother, whenever his kids had a favorite book, if it was too long, he would hide it behind the couch. And so yeah, you can just flip with me. You're on it. You're so on it. You can't be a pirate. How to Be a Pirate. Cece was mad. Who were those boys to say she couldn't be a pirate? They had probably never even been on a boat. But Cece knew somebody who had. Grandpa? In here, Cece. What's it like to be a pirate? Why do you think I know anything about that? Grandpa asked. And tell me, why do you want to know about pirates? So we've got Cece, we've got the grandpa. Let's also keep our eye on the dog, okay? Cece took a deep breath. I'm sorry, I'm going into like elementary school style here, so let's all just take a deep breath. Because, she said, the boys are pretending to be pirates, and I wanted to play too. I even brought my sword. But they said, you can't be a pirate. And what if they're right? I don't know how to be one. But maybe you do, because of your ship. I know pirates have tattoos, so I was thinking, maybe you know all about them. Can you teach me? So, you want to know about pirates, eh? Asked Grandpa. Well, I guess the first thing a pirate needs to be is brave. A pirate seeks out adventure and isn't afraid of the obstacles ahead. How's Cece doing? How's Grandpa doing? How's the dog doing? What else? Asked Cece. You have to be quick. A pirate is ready to react to danger at any moment. Can you all give me a good E? Nicely done. You should know that I was reading this once to a group of kids in New Orleans, and before I turned that page, it was, you have to be, and somebody said, ferocious. And I was like, where were you like 6 months ago, kid? They're good. They're good. Another one, Cece asked. It isn't all about danger, though, whispered Grandpa. A pirate knows how to have fun. Give me a yippee. Nice job. More, yelled Cece. Another thing a pirate must be is independent. Having a good crew is important, but at the end of the day, a pirate must face her problems on her own. Give me a wee. How's the dog doing? Great question, Danny. Where's the dog? In the claws. Good job. That's exactly how that usually goes with second graders. Okay, now we can all cover our heads because we're a little scared, just like the dog. That's all right. We can cover our heads. There you go. But do you know the most important quality a pirate should have? Asked Grandpa. It's something even more important than being brave or quick, knowing how to have fun, or even being independent. Is it treasure? Cece asked. Or cannons? The most important thing a person can have, pirate or not, is love. And they're hugging, and the dog's happy. There's a little tattoo there on the heart. If you can't see it, it says Cece. Cece ran, her feet swift, and her heart strong. I'm going to say it, then you say it. I'm brave. I'm quick. I'm independent. And I'm fun. I love being a pirate. Give yourselves a round of applause. So we're wrapping things up very quickly, but I just want you to know one thing. Obviously, 826 Valencia, much like all 826s, has a front shop. There was a pirate supply store. I worked there for many, many years. It took me a long time to recognize that this book is more about becoming a writer than it is about tattoos. And this book is more about becoming a writer than it is about pirates. But what it is at its core, and it's the thing that I want you all to take home with you today, this morning, and especially, I get it, it's trying times, but as you dig deep into your pockets today, because you're not just giving to 826 Boston, you're not just giving to these programs and satellite things that are in the schools, you're not just giving to help out volunteer coordinators so that they can link the right kid with the right volunteer that's gonna inspire them. You are investing in your community. These are the children. These are the people that if they do well, this city will do well. If they do well, this city will thrive. And so please just remember that 826 is a conduit to take your money and influence the culture. And that is so, so important. Because what is the core of this book? If you look at the beginning, it's very, very bland. These colors are very, very dim. But as you move through the book, the colors get brighter and brighter and brighter until the end. There's the beginning, there's the end. And that's because what this book is really about is the more time we spend with people we love, telling stories, communicating with one another, the better off we all will be and the brighter your day will be. So please give that gift to a child. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Isaac. Thank you, Isaac. Well, I'm the luckiest guy here because I get to thank all these people, especially Isaac, for the inspirational words that he passed along. My name's Kevin Whalen. I have been on the board of 826 for something like 13 years, and I've been chair of this event since its inception. I'll go off script a second here and tell you that we've had A-list writers over the years. We've had Walter Isaacson, David McCullough, A-list writers. But I'm so proud to have an alum of 826 come here to our Books for Breakfast. Thank you, Isaac. This is really just awesome. So we know we make a promise to get you back out of here by 9 o'clock, so I'm gonna make my remarks rather brief. Once again, it's not too late to donate to 826. You have your envelopes there. If you want to do something through a donor advised fund, if you want to, stop by one of the tables on the way out. One other thing, for anybody who might be a long distance runner, we raise funds every year at the Boston Marathon, and we do have a bib available, and we're interested in anybody who might pass along a name to the desk on the way out. We do raise a fair amount of funds affiliated with the marathon. So it's my job to thank the wonderful sponsors and partners who really put this together. Without them, we never would have been able to do this. The list grows every year. We're very excited to thank Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, Putnam Investments, HubSpot, Amundi, Morgan Stanley, Brookline Bank, Fiduciary Trust, Goodwin Procter, Eastern Bank, BookBub, the Boston Globe, and our great coordinators, AE Events, who made sure that this went very smoothly. So let's hear it for all the people who put this together. we probably started working on this back, before Memorial Day, so it's a big lift, and thank you for all our sponsors and partners. I also want to thank Future Chefs for the delicious breakfast, and More Than Words for hosting us. It's always a win-win when our fundraising events can also support fellow nonprofits in Boston working for worthy causes as they do. And finally, I don't want to miss this opportunity with so many board members here in the room and friends of the organization to thank a good supporter of ours, John Fullerton. John has served on the board for 15 years, recently rotated off the board, and we really benefited in the early years. He's been a tremendous resource for us. And so I'd like to have John come up so that we can give him a token of our appreciation, and maybe you all could do the same. Thank you, John. Thank you so much. All right, so one last round of applause for everybody, including John and Isaac and all our partners. Thank you very much. It's 9:02. I lied.